Hello, everyone. Today it is all about being able to give our students a free assessment. I know some of us don't get free assessments, some of us do give free assessments, but today I'm going to be talking specifically about 3 tools that you can use to give your elementary students an assessment for reading and math to find out exactly what areas they are struggling in. And this is pivotal for me to be able to close the gap quickly for my students. I need to know what areas are they struggling with most. Parents can give me some information, but they don't give me all of the information. So I would love to know from you guys. I see some of you guys already writing down some of the assessments that you give, which are awesome because I think the more that we know that exist out there, the easier it is for us to make a great determination for us on what is going to be the best tool. I see that Stacy uses the San Diego Quick Assessment, and I noticed somebody else said that they use like a story prompt for writing and try to get like a writing sample from their students. And today I'm going to specifically be focusing on reading and math. So we're going to start with the math first. The very first one that I give my students when it comes to the assessments is called the Atom assessment. It's by Let's Go Learn. And what I love about the assessment is that I have the ability to find out from my students exactly which areas in math they're struggling with. And some people don't like the assessment because it can be a little bit lengthy, but the way that I work it is I do the first hour completely free. I gather the information that I have. I have the child do the assessment with me because I don't want there to be confusion on the parent helping the child, getting right answers, and I need to be able to see exactly what areas the child is struggling with. So if you guys like these kinds of videos where I share these kinds of tips, hit that subscribe button, hit that like, and also if you have any ideas for other videos that you would like me to be able to make, then list that below. All right, so let's take a look. What does it specifically look like, the document that I get after I give the assessment? So I'm going to show you right now. I've already taken off the child's name so that you can't see the child that I specifically am working with, but I want you to see the kinds of data that I get. So with this Let's Go Learn assessment, I'm able to get numbers and operations. You can see that right here. And I'm going to actually go to my highlighter here. And you can see that the areas in red, these are the areas that she needs to continue to work with. Okay, so those were the areas she needs to work with. If you see NT here, that means that it was not tested. So it does like put something in front of them. If it's too hard, then they go below. Now it does start with their age level as a starting point for them, and then it goes from there. So you can see that she was in grade 2.9 at the time, and so now it's going to let you know everything that was below that 2.9 is below grade level for her. So counting by 1s, 2s, 3s, 5s, and 10s was something that was difficult for her and is something that she needs to continue to work on. And it's very specific on the types of activities that I need to work on with her. This makes then my instruction that much more powerful, right? A parent might say, oh yeah, she's struggling with addition. Well, sometimes there's other things that they need to know as well, right? Like counting by 1s, 2s, 3s, 5s, and 10s is really important for my addition. So this really helps to know that she's even struggling with skills at this level. So as we continue to go on down, we also see that she's struggling with comparing and ordering numbers. So here are the things that I know. These red arrows are the things that I need to work on next. Here we had addition with whole numbers. You know, that was what the parent had told me. And then it didn't have her tested on any of these other skills right here because she struggled here at this level and she ended up getting a 0.9. We can see subtraction of whole numbers, fractions. As we continue going on down, measurement of money was difficult for her. Time, it says here that she can read a clock at a 1.9 level. So if we take a look here, we had temperature. We've got, if we take a look here, comparative vocabulary, measuring by length, number line. These were all things that she struggled with. And this is so helpful for me And one of the things that I do is I use IXL sometimes as a starting point of getting some additional types of problems for this. I'll also use Prodigy after this. It's a fun game that I bring on in. Sometimes I'll bring it in like once a week, or sometimes I bring it in for a few weeks, and then I work on some more with IXL. So I kind of go back and forth, but I can actually put inside of Prodigy, which is kind of like a game. I can put on inside of there, what skills are we working on right now? But first I practice them in IXL, then we go on and we play some fun games inside of Prodigy that has her continue to work on those skills. And she absolutely loves that resource and that tool. But this is really extremely valuable information for me. Yeah, Elizabeth asked a great question. She said, you do an hour of the assessment one-on-one, and then you do a follow-up discussion. So that's exactly what I do. So I do an hour, again, as far as I possibly can. See how much more? It does give me a percentage as I'm giving the test of how far I am. And so this is really helpful for me because I can take a look at that and I can be like, oh, okay, so I still have about like 25% of the test left to give. So I can let them know. I could say, okay, so I did find some areas that we definitely need to work on. For example, here are some of the areas that I found that she was struggling with. I'm going to be able to continue to work on those skills with her. During the first session, if you decide to move forward, then I will finish the assessment with her, and then we'll begin working on those skills right away. And I'll say, sound good? And they'll say, yep, sounds great. Awesome. So then I finish the assessment while I'm getting paid to be able to give and monitor it. Now that it does cost to be able to purchase the assessment, it is $20 per student, but it is totally worth it because you do not need to write a report for the parent afterwards. It automatically, you saw the report that I had, right? It automatically comes up with that report, and there's even a shorter version that you can share with parents as you're going through it. So I use that and I give that to the parents saying, here we go. And it makes them feel comfortable that they know that I know exactly what areas she's struggling in and I can specifically help her. So that is really helpful for me to be able to utilize. So this is what I utilize when I want to know specifically where their math skills are, right? So with the reading test, lots of you guys know I absolutely love the QRI-7. I actually went to both of the universities that the authors teach at. So I went to Marquette University and I went to Cardinal Stritch, and Joanne Caldwell is the author of that. And so I had used this resource and tool before I started my tutoring. And so I already knew how to use this resource. I already knew how to use the tool and knew how to, extrapolate the data from it to be able to know what I need to teach my specific students. And I absolutely love when I first started back in 2010, there was like this little disc that I could put into my computer and everything was already digitized. Well, now they have an online version, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I'm going to share my screen again with you so that you guys can see what that looks like. But right on over here in chapter 10 of this online version of this test, I have the student word lists, and then I also have the passages that I'm going to have them read. So let's say that I have a second grader who's reading at a first grade level. Well, then I might start at the primer passage, or I might start at the level 1 passages just to see how does she do with that specific level. So if you take a look at, let's say, Fox and Mouse here, I'm going to move to where the questions are. Now, I have 2 screens that I can do this on. You can open it up on 2 different devices if you wish to. You can open it up on an iPad on the side where you have the questions. I don't see a need anymore to have the this version where I would have to, flip to the different pages. I used to use both versions. I don't anymore. So just the online version is fine. But you see that there are these questions that you ask right before. So I'll ask these questions ahead of time. And then what I get from them is the They tell me their answer the best that they can, and I'm really just making sure that they have some background knowledge as they go on into the passage. If they don't have any background knowledge, it's really important for me to see, okay, how did them not having background knowledge affect their reading? And if they did have a lot of background knowledge, how did that affect their reading? Were they able to read the passage better? Did it help them? Those are the kinds of things that I'm looking for specifically. And then I go right on over to the very beginning. They don't see those questions ahead of time because I have it pulled down on this side, but this is where I share my screen, and then I have the child read the passage, and I time them as well to see what is their fluency their fluency speed. I'm also taking notes on any words that they struggle with, and I am able to see what do they do when they are in connected text. So this is the QRI-7. It does go all the way up into a high school level. So this is really helpful to know as you are taking a look at this particular assessment. It does go, if you can see here, high school passages, and it breaks it down into the high school passages are a social studies passage and a science passage, because at this point they are reading to learn versus learning to read, right? So here you've got this World War I, part 1, and then there's a part 2. So the first time around that I give the assessment, I have them read the first one. And you can see these are going to be a lot more difficult text for them to go through and read compared to the lower version text. And these are norm referenced assessments, which helps you know that other kids, there's an expectation on how well that they will do, and this is expected that a high school student will do well. The average high school student will do well on this test, and kids that are struggling will not do well on this test. Oh, I'm so glad that, Elizabeth, you asked if I used another assessment for my beginning readers, because yes, I do. In fact, the assessment that I use, I designed. It is called the Dyslexia Screening Assessment. Now, I use this with my beginning readers because all beginning readers kind of look dyslexic. So they're going to struggle with some of these beginning skills. So I'll use that dyslexia screener even if I don't think that they have dyslexia. So let's take a look and see what parts do I give for these beginning readers. So I am going to be taking a look at rhyme identification. I take a look at, can they produce rhymes? Blend sounds. Do they segment sounds? Sequencing of numbers. Now, this one is important for my dyslexic kiddos because they have a really hard time with sequencing things and putting things in order. So this is one of those things that I'll put into place to find out, okay, is dyslexia, a problem for them? Also, these beginning skills like rhyming and segmenting sounds, these are things that dyslexics tend to struggle with, but so do beginning readers. So sometimes, if you're doing these assessments and you're like, oh, I think they might have dyslexia, take a look at their age as well to determine, like, could this just be that they haven't had the right instruction yet, or do you really think that they have dyslexia? We also go through letter naming fluency, right? I want to know the uppercase letters, the lowercase letters, and then the sounds. And all of those lowercase letter sounds I have inside of there. And you'll notice they're out of order. A lot of kids have memorized the alphabet, right? So if they've memorized the alphabet, then the odds are that they are going to just be able to repeat that alphabet back versus tell me the name of the letter, right? And so I want to know, can they look at the letter, know it without it being in order? And then the same thing with sounds. And you'll notice there are typical sounds that all beginning readers are going to struggle with in the beginning. Sometimes they struggle with D's and B's, P's and Q's. They'll struggle with the L's, the I's. They struggle with the Y. A lot of time they want to say like W for the Y. So these are all things that you want to take a look at because, again, this is going to tell you what do you need to specifically focus on. Once they get up to second grade and above, I give as well this piece of it, which is nonsense words, and I have them read those nonsense words to me, and there's all the different patterns that are there. If I think that they have dyslexia, then I'm going to continue to ask some of these questions. But if they do not have dyslexia, or I'm just trying to find out what their beginning skills are, then I do not utilize those resources. And I've created for people a Google slide that you can use for administering. So on the Google slide, you'll notice here you've got the rhyme identification. This is not something where you share your screen with the student. So you just minimize your screen. So right now, you see me kind of minimized right now. I'm sharing my screen with you. But what I would do is I would put myself on, I would stop sharing me. And I would actually go to this little button right here, the minus sign here, to minimize me, so that I can see them and I can see the assessment. So this is really helpful. So you'll see now I'm not sharing my screen with the student. I'm just minimizing myself. And I have what I need to say to them, have them practice, and then go through these different activities. So this is really, really useful for you as you go on through. Then I do tell you exactly where to go right here, like, okay, now you can share the screen with the student, right? So this is where then you'd go back, and now you hit share screen so that they can see the assessment. And this is perfect for online giving, isn't it? I could give this portion as well in person. It doesn't matter, right? I just then share my computer screen with them if I was in person. But this is designed as well mostly for the online, because this is exactly what I do, is online reading tutoring. So then I have them go through, tell me each of the names there, and they do that. Now I can go into slideshow mode here, and I can go to present on the screen, and then it will present for me. And then the slideshow will be right there so that they can tell me the names of those letters. Nothing else is confusing for them and what they need to specifically do. So that is the assessment that I give for the beginning. And along with that, I've also created, you'll notice I've got that one sheet, this one right here. This is what you're writing on as you have the child go through the PowerPoint. So then you're able to determine, okay, is this a beginning skill for this child? Is it a developing skill, or is it advanced? And if they get 9 to 10 correct, it's advanced. On top of that, then there's like a feedback form that you can give to the parent if they decide that they do want to go and get tested for dyslexia, because this is just a screener. The skills that are listed on here are skills that kids that have dyslexia will struggle with the most. So the only time that I ever give this assessment is a parent says to me, I think my child might have dyslexia. So I'll say, would you like me to give a dyslexia screener? And they'll say, sure, great. I'll check to see if I'm noticing that could be a problem for them. Now, I don't have all of the other data to diagnose them. Okay, it's more than just the screener, right? We know that early detection is key when it comes to diagnosing a child with dyslexia. The quicker we can get them diagnosed, the better. For me, I want to know what skills I need to specifically teach, right? And so whether the child has dyslexia or not, I want to make sure that I know what skills I need to teach so that we can close those gaps as soon as possible. I don't need to go through a program that's going to teach every single alphabet letter when they're just struggling with 4 or 5 of the letters, right? So if I know what 4 or 5 they're struggling with, then I can focus on those letters and we can move on. That is a lot smarter in the instruction, right? We are not the first teachers most of the time. We are the tutor that, is trying to help close the gaps. And so if we know where those gaps are, we can close them, whether they have dyslexia or not. And I think that's what's really cool about all of this. Am I going to try to make it more hands-on for these kids? Sure, I'll try to make it more hands-on for them. That's just best teaching practices as well, trying to teach in multiple different, modalities. So I want to be able to, get their bodies moving and have them involved in the process of learning. It's not just me in the front of the room telling them what to do. I am specifically there guiding them through the process. So this is really, really helpful. A great question. Do I charge the families for the screener? So all of these assessments that I've talked about, I use as part of a free assessment. A lot of people, they say things like, oh, there are so many people that that say they don't want to do online tutoring. Well, this is a really great way to get them to try it, okay? So you're not asking for anything out of them. This is just a free assessment, right? So the dyslexia assessment usually is just done during my time with the assessment. So I usually start with a QRI-7, and then I move into the dyslexia screener if necessary. If I feel like they're missing skills, if I feel like I have red flags, then I will give the dyslexia screener at that time. And then I have the sales conversation with the parent right after that. And I ask if they're ready to move forward. This helps me, this is like so helpful in so many ways. First, there are a lot of people that will charge, $200, $300, $400, $500 just to do an assessment, right? And that can be great and all, but you then have to sell them on the assessment. You have to sell them on what are they going to get out of this, right? And if you can't sell that to them, you don't ever get to do the assessment and you lose the opportunity to have them as a client. This way, you get to go on in, see what skills they're struggling with, and then be able to give feedback to the parent and then ask if they're ready to get started. And I would say 9.6% of the time, they're going to say yes, even if they wanted in-person tutoring, because now they've tried the assessment online. So a lot of times they're like, we're really looking for an in-person tutor. Usually what I say is, well, what we can do is we can do the free assessment and see how well your child responds to it. And if they really just don't respond well to being able to do it online, we certainly could you could say we could do it in person, or if you can't do it in person, suggest somebody who might be closer to them that they could do the tutoring with. So this is my way of kind of getting them to see that online's not so bad. We can do exactly what we need to be able to do with online, and they log on in and they just see, oh, okay, this is me interacting with them. I'm not throwing them into like a group class. Virtual tutoring and online tutoring are virtual schooling and online tutoring are completely different things, right? When I've got a classroom of 25, 30 kids sitting in front of the computer that are, looking on their phone, getting distracted by noises in their house, all that kind of stuff, versus one-on-one with a child, it is a very different experience. So some people, that's where their understanding of what online tutoring looks like came from, was the experience their child had with virtual, right? When I tell people that, we are interacting together the entire time. Your child is going to be engaged 100% of the time, not 2% of the time. It really makes a difference. Great question on QRI-7 and QRI-6. What they do is they update any passages that are outdated. So when they do an update, they do take a look at, are there any passages now that are not, applicable? There's one passage. I believe I noticed this one. I don't know if it happened with QRI-6 or from QRI-5, but there was a little passage about a girl that it's all about Rosa's birthday. And she's really sad because she has to go to her dad gets a new job and they move. And she doesn't get to celebrate her birthday with her family. So in the old version, she ended up getting a VHS tape as a gift. Now, how many of our students even know what a VHS tape is today, right? So it's outdated. The new version changed it to that she was able to Skype with her family and they were able to sing happy birthday to her and still be able to celebrate with her. So, and at the end of that passage, it said that she was sleeping with the VHS tape by her side. Well, now it just says that Rosa was sleeping. So they make changes based off of, are things outdated, right? And do they need to change them? So those are some of the differences that you'll see in the different versions. If there are passages that you feel these are fine to use, there's no need to update yourself to the newest version. I've got like QRI 4, 5, 6, and 7. I only get those so that I can see what are the differences, and I can communicate those to you guys. So if you have an older version, most likely you're going to be fine with using that older version. And I'm going to see if I can put the link in here for you guys. For those of you guys who are, oh, I can't get it in there. I was going to say, I have a link for you. If you're interested in being able to get the dyslexia screening assessment, I have a link for you. Let me come back on over. Nope, that's not it. Do I have it? Yep, right here. You can grab that assessment for yourself if that is something that you are interested in adding to your repertoire of resources for testing those younger kiddos. And there's even video there that goes through how to specifically use that assessment. I'm so glad that you guys are here and you got to hear about those 3 tools that I love using. They are the ADAM assessment by Let's Go Learn, QRI 7. If you don't have a version of the QRI, I would definitely suggest the 7. However, if you already have a version, there's no need to update it unless you feel the passages are completely outdated, which most of them aren't. There's just a couple that are outdated. And the dyslexia screening assessment. We all know that early identification is necessary in order to be able to help these kiddos. And if we can help set that path, if we have those younger kiddos that are coming towards us and the parents never knew if their child had dyslexia or not, we can at least give them a starting point and then give them information that they can take either to the pediatrician or to the school system to request the next step, which would be the official testing. And that can take up to a year with the school system. It can take 4 to 5 months sometimes by going through a pediatrician. So it depends on which path they end up taking, how quick they want that diagnosis, but there's always pros and cons. So thanks you guys so much for joining us today. I am glad that you guys joined us.